Today's episode is brought to you by Patreon. If you're interested in supporting the show, go to patreon.com/JoshuaRevelis and become a $2 backer today and get early access to the new episodes. I'll be leaving a link down in the description to the page, but for now, on to today's episode. You're listening to the Augmented Experience podcast. My name is Joshua Revelis. I'm a student, musician, and a gamer at heart. Join me as I sit down with fellow enthusiasts to talk about what's going on in the technology, business, and gaming world. I hope you guys enjoy. All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. My name is Joshua Revelis. I am your host as usual. And yeah, welcome to the Friday episode. Yay. And obviously based on the poll, you guys already know what we're talking about. And I've actually been waiting to talk about this one because, I got a lot to talk about on this one. But I want to make sure that you guys, don't spend an hour because I know you guys don't want to hear me talk for an hour. We might change that though, but that's another thing. So, first things first, we just want to talk about, obviously, the poll. When you guys hear this episode, the poll will go live for next week's episode, so you're going to cast your votes on what we're going to talk about next week. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So let's go into the topic about iPadOS. This subject, oh boy, okay. I don't think you guys understand how long I've been waiting to talk about this, especially given that I've been going mental when they announced iPadOS at DubDub or WWDC, and I've been talking with people about it for a while now. And obviously you guys know my opinion on the iPad. I've already talked about it. I've already shared what I've seen and what I believe behind where the iPad places in Apple's lineup in the market. And I think with the release of iPadOS in the fall, I think Apple was starting to realize, okay, this piece of hardware right here is a future product, is what we're talking about. This is something that's going to impact the future in many fields, in my opinion. I've humbly believed that, and I'll gladly talk about it and share how I view it, and especially because given what they changed and the improvements that came with iPadOS in comparison to just letting them run iOS, which we'll state the obvious is iPadOS is a modified version of iOS, clearly, but it's going to be more specific going forward because now they're going to update the iPads more differently in comparison to the iPhones. Yes, they'll still receive like the normal updates and things like that, but it's not going to go exactly the same because they have to add new stuff. You can't just leave iPadOS with nothing. And I think with this, we're going into a good position. So let's talk about it. So, as we already stated, we already know what iPadOS is. iPadOS is just a modified version of iOS, which obviously it will launch with iOS 13 in the fall. So it'll be a modified version of iOS 13. But obviously there were some changes because they did something to make it unique. Clearly, given the iPad size, you can't just throw on iOS on there and just, not make something new. Clearly, you can't do that. Even though, they did that for a long time. But, they obviously realized, okay, there's more to this. And a lot more people are starting to notice it, especially professionals. And that's the main people we want to keep in mind, at least. Or prosumer professionals, at least. Even consumers, they're going to get some benefits out of these things too. So, main things to talk about are going to be the function of making the iPad be able to read SD cards and read external drives. It's a huge thing because iOS typically, unless if it's been a licensed product through Apple, they're not going to allow you to use external storage. Clearly, they want you to buy more storage up front or they want you to have iCloud storage. Clearly. So, obviously, this is something that a lot of people that are very creative and use the iPad for creative means, they've been clamoring for this, and I've wanted this for a while. That's the main reason I bought my RAV Power File Hub, which is pretty much useless now because, iOS basically just allows it normally. And obviously the second change would be the desktop browsing on Safari. So that means it's going to have, download manager. It's going to have like desktop apps. So essentially websites are no longer going to use like a modified mobile version, which I think you guys are familiar with that. Like sometimes some apps don't use a desktop version. They use like a modified mobile version of them. So now all the apps are going to be using or really websites, you're going to be getting the desktop version of those websites and not just a mobile version of them. So that's a great improvement. The download manager is something phenomenal. I think we've needed that for a while, so people don't need to download like other browsing applications to have a download manager, because even Chrome on the iPad doesn't even have that. So I don't know if the Chrome will have that on the iPad with the update or not, or is it just Safari? Either way, I think it's great. I think it's a great improvement. Going into the next change, the next change was clearly multitasking and how the whole gesture system works, essentially. And obviously, one way to go about this is they even added mouse support. Obviously, based on what we saw on the beta that's going on right now, I will say this now, I do not recommend anybody to install the beta. Wait, just don't test the beta. Watch videos with people testing it. Save yourselves a lot of time and hassle, clearly. But yeah, there's mouse support in the iPadOS, and I think that's crazy, because normally some people would be like, well, that's what the pen is for. The pen is meant to be your supplementary mouse, is what it is. That's what people, in theory, that's what Apple made it for. But the fact that now you can actually get mouse support and plug in a Bluetooth mouse, I think that's great. And another feature was obviously the multitasking, things like that. So now the multitasking gestures are going to be a lot different, so you can overlay apps. So if you have, like, say, open up an email app twice, like the Mails app, you can open it up twice, have one reading the other, but you still want to look at email, so you can have the other one going there. And a lot of benefits. They changed a lot how the multitasking works, and I think that was a phenomenal change. Obviously, having the widgets on the screen, and I'd say not as leaving the iPad so, I'd say, wide open the way it normally is. I think now they're condensing a little bit more, and at least like making it so you can have more stuff on the screen. And yeah, I think it's a great change. But obviously, that's not what we're here to talk about. iPadOS is great, but I think this kind of needs to reel back in, like when we talked about the iPad a while back, or when I shared my opinion about the iPad. Is it the MacBook killer now? And I think I'm going to stand on some very controversial toes, because, or really, I'm about to step on some people's toes and say something controversial right now. But yeah, I think the iPad Pro kills the MacBook. I don't know about the Pro, because if the rumors are true, the MacBook Pro might go into a good direction that we want it to. But that's what I'm saying, if the rumors are true. If Apple keeps going in the same direction they're going with the MacBooks, and the MacBook Pro specifically, yes, I do believe the iPad Pros will replace them. And my thinking behind this all comes down to the fact that Apple fixed all of the issues, or at least the majority of the issues that were very prominent that people had with the iPad. You wanted external storage, like obviously, the new iPad Pros, the 11 and 12.9 inch, they had a USB-C port, but it didn't work like one. Guess what? Now it works. You can just plop in the SSD if your SSD uses USB-C to USB-C, plug it in, boom, it works. Got an SD card reader, boom, works. It all works now. The Files app was completely modified, and I think it was great to make it a lot easier to handle moving those files and things like that. The fact that they changed the multitasking, they even added mouse support. The fact that Safari has a download manager and it's desktop class browsing. But obviously, we run into the argument about professional software. And this is something I even talked to Edgar about it too, and we talked about it. Was Edgar's like, yes, I think the iPad this made the iPad far more useful than what it already is. But I still wouldn't switch from a Mac or MacBook, due to the fact that I still need my software on there. Like, some people are like, well, I still wouldn't use it because I can't do they think you can't do mixing and stuff on there. And obviously, everybody's to their own, obviously. Like, clearly there's software already on the iPad that people have already been showing people how to use for years now, figuring out how to get the most out of it. And we've already talked about him before. Henny is obviously the main one that he was excited when he saw this iPadOS, because they fixed a lot of the pet peeves that he had with the iPad in general. It fixed a lot of his pet peeves, and Henny is excited. And this is only making or solidifying his view on it, which is a view that I agree with, is that the iPad is the future, especially when it comes to audio and sound engineering. Especially because I wouldn't say with the mixing console and things like that. Obviously, Henny will say otherwise due to Henny's experience with, like I said, making all of his music on an iPad and everything, mixing and doing everything on the iPad. Henny's going to say otherwise. And obviously, I will leave that to him because obviously he knows what he's talking about more than I do. But I think in the sense of people that want to do content creation or anything in that line, I don't see a reason to buy a MacBook Pro anymore for you guys. I think in the sense that what you're getting with the new iPad Pros, especially with the amount of power that is behind the new iPad Pros, along with iOS 13, which basically would just be iPadOS, we'll just call it that, with all the refinements that they made with iPadOS, going along with the new iPads, or recently iPads, and especially how it's going to alter the iPads going forward, even the older models, I think, yeah. I honestly believe we are in the point that the MacBook sales will go down unless if Apple does something to change the MacBook Pro lineup, which that's why I said, I honestly kept telling people they will never add those fixes to the iPad because if they did, they would literally gutter the sales of the MacBooks. They would, because why would you buy a MacBook with more inconsistent hardware than an iPad that's proven to be consistent, reliable software? Now it's fixing a lot of the issues. Hardware is more reliable than the MacBooks. It makes Apple look dumb, because why would you sell a better option and cheaper option than a MacBook? Why? Like, it doesn't make any sense. But that's why it kind of leads into the theory that, yeah, I think we are going to see a refined MacBook Pro this year, and that we're going to see the new design, where they're a lot thicker, and Apple decides to not rely on design over performance, and they go back to focusing on performance, because that's what they did. If you think about it, that's what they did with the iMac Pro, or not iMac Pro, the Mac Pro. What am I talking about? We just talked about it. The Mac Pro was a good example of that. They chose performance over design. It still looked nice, but it was no longer focused on just design like the trash can Mac Pro, clearly. That thing was obviously just focused on design, but it was pretty damn ugly, and it was pretty weak. It would thermal throttle like a madman. But you get the point. The iPad presents a new option in the market, and you can't deny it anymore. I even tell people now, like the fact with iPadOS, I tell people, if you are a college student and you are going to college and you want something that's very powerful and reliable to do all your stuff, yeah, the iPad's the way. I would tell you to buy an iPad, or unless if you're just using it to take notes, just buy a Chromebook. But if you are already in the market of buying a Mac or a MacBook or a MacBook Pro, just buy the iPad Pro. Just buy the keyboard cover from Logitech and buy the pen, and there you go. iPadOS, that's everything you'll ever need. For my content creators, yeah, you don't need an expensive rig anymore, guys. Like, I know that sounds crazy, like to have a big desktop setup to edit your videos and everything. No, you don't need it anymore. Like, Henny has already shown people how to use LumaFusion, and LumaFusion's coming out with LumaFusion 2.0, which includes a lot of upgrades that almost make it line up with Final Cut Pro and Lightroom too. And I think it's crazy. And in my opinion, content creators are going to benefit the most from this. Audio and sound professionals, if you don't believe me, go talk to Henny, watch his content, and he'll show you what he's been able to do for the last few years on an iPad. The man is incredible. He's already shown people that this hardware is something incredible, and there's something here, clearly. And I've seen it. Like, obviously, my opinion, like, I still have my laptop to edit the episodes and everything, but that's because I still haven't really mastered the whole thing with the iPad. But now the fact that they're going to have, transferring the files and everything to the iPad and things like that, I might make the transition. Obviously, I wouldn't sell my laptop unless I'm going to buy a PC, which is pretty much the only reason I would. And yeah, I would rather have the PC than the laptop because, like I said, the iPad just does everything I need to. I already take it with me everywhere I go. But you get the point, is we're going in this direction that the iPad is no longer it's not a supplementary device anymore. This can be a daily driver, and a lot of people are starting to see it. Like MKBHD, he even talked about it. He thinks that, yeah, there's something here, and he likes it more than his laptop. He posted a recent tweet, I think it was on it, or Instagram, where he talked about it. And a lot of people are starting to buy iPads now because of this iPadOS, because it fixes a lot of things. It's the most promising thing that came out of WWDC. And some people say, no, it's not really that important. Yeah, it pretty much is important. I think it's the most important thing, because it's the only thing that didn't have any compromises in it, besides the Pro Display, which obviously the Pro Display technically still had compromises due to the fact with the stand. But I know a lot of people are going to call me crazy because they're like, Josh, are you basically implying that a laptop got replaced by a tablet? Yes, I think it did. I honestly believe there's no point to buy a MacBook Pro or any newer design MacBook Pro that's out right now, unless if, Apple redesigns the thing and fixes a lot of the pet peeves people have with them, because fixing those pet peeves is the main thing. We need to fix those things first before anything else. And I don't really see what Apple will do, because, like I said, based on the rumors, there are rumors floating that the new MacBook Pro will come this year, and it will be a bigger chassis. Because, like we said, the main problem with the MacBook Pros is, yes, they need a bigger chassis. You're using these higher-end parts or higher-end CPUs. It only makes sense to give it more space to breathe, because that's the laws of physics. Like, that's basically what the laws of physics need. Those things are going to thermal throttle, whether you want it or not. It will. And unless if, maybe Apple decides to use their in-house silicone, which what the iPads do, because the iPads, think about it, people are able to render 4K video in real time, and it doesn't get hot, it doesn't make sound. And that's with an Apple silicone chip. I think that's what Apple should probably think, is if they're crazy enough, if they really wanted to save money, like, they could probably make the things cheaper too if they put their own silicone inside of it. But you get what I'm saying, is that it wouldn't really make that much sense. But yeah, their chips are pretty powerful. Like, Apple's making some pretty beefy chips, and I guarantee they could probably make a custom chip, like a modified version of the iPhone chip of that here, put it inside, and just make a desktop version or PC version of that chip and put inside the laptops. Like the Mac, like the iPad Pros, like the A12X Bionic is a ridiculous chip that's able to compete with MacBook Pros and MacBooks to begin with. So yeah, I think iPadOS is probably the most important thing that came out of WWDC. And for my listeners that are content creators, or you want to get into it, I think now is the best time to buy an iPad, guys. If you guys are looking to get into, making music, starting a podcast, make videos, like editing videos, anything in that sense, I think is the best time for you guys to buy an iPad. I think with all that's going on, especially for college students, I know you guys are out there, like, especially my incoming freshmen this year, I think it's a good time to buy it, guys. I think this is where you should pull the trigger. And there's not really much I can say on that. I think we've pretty much talked about it all, is that the iPad, especially when we see the full release in the fall, I think we're going to see some incredible stuff. I think we're going to see a lot of creators come out of the workshop, and we're going to see a lot of cool stuff happening. Like, I'm just saying, guys, this is crazy. Like, and I hope you guys pay attention, because this is ridiculous with what they're doing. I know a lot of you guys don't really care that much about tech, but Apple struck a gold mine. They listened, and now they're doing something. But I feel like they have something up their sleeve to make sure that this doesn't hurt their bottom line. I know that for a fact. I don't think it's going to come at the cost of bottlenecking the iPad, but I think it will come in the form of innovating or listening in other areas to improve other products. Because, like I said, the only product that's hurting right now in Apple is probably the MacBook Pros right now. iMac Pros are pretty much fine. iMacs are still great, like high school students and for art classes and things like that. Normal MacBooks, those things are probably dead at this point, pretty much. Like, with the MacBook Air, I don't really see a point of buying a MacBook. Like, normal MacBooks don't really serve a purpose anymore. The MacBook Pro, if they listen to the advice and what people gave them, just make it thicker, then yeah, I think we've struck something great. That's what I'm saying, is these things need to be thicker. Like, you need to make these thick boys. Like, not gaming laptop thick, but at least thicker than what they are. And then put some ports on those things. Like, for the love of God, please put the ports back on there. Give us our USB-A ports and stuff like that back, and HDMIs. Come on, guys. What are you doing? But I hope you guys enjoy today's episode. I know this has been a very busy week, especially for me. That we got the new Wi-Fi and everything. We had, like, it was crazy having that installed. I know, like, a lot of people are asking me personally, like, Josh, how you doing in terms of job finding? And I'm like, not doing so hot. I know that it's been a little bit hard because not that many places really want to hire me. So I only hope you guys keep me in your thoughts and prayers if, you know, that rolls your boat, and I keep hoping that I can get a job. And if not, then so be it. I enjoy what I'm doing, guys, especially that I'm just relaxed right now. I think I'm not stressed. I'm not trying to get anxious about it. I'll just allow for it to happen. If I get the opportunity, great. And if it doesn't, that's perfectly fine. It does not bother me because I'm still breathing. I'm still enjoying what I'm doing. I'm still having this opportunity to talk to you guys with this show. And obviously, I want to give a shout out to Patreon backers, or backer, my friend Roberto, for being the backer for already 4 months now, going into the 5-month backer. Yeah, thank you so much for donating to the show, bro. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me that you're willing to support me. Like, you know, if you guys are willing to support the show, hey, you can just go to the Patreon page and, you know, chip in $2 a month and you get early access to episodes. I might even change that and not even give early access. I'll just change it. If you guys feel like in the kindness of your heart that you want to donate and help me out a little bit, that's perfectly fine. No obligation to do it. It's obviously you guys get to choose if you want to or not. And I'll just be grateful and humbly accept whatever you guys do. But I thank you guys for giving me your time and listening to the show. Thank you for coming back, and I hope you guys come back next week to listen to the episodes that I have lined up for you, because I'm telling you this right now, July has a big interview lined up with a very special guest. And I say that plurally. I hope you guys come back and listen. Thank you guys so much. I love you guys to death. You guys have yourselves a wonderful weekend. Take care, guys. Bye, guys.